Okay, so while we are preparing for the recording, uh, okay, good day to we all, and welcome to today's section. If you can hear me loud and clear, please type on the comment section. You can hear me. My name is Dr. Ali Igoy, and today we are going to be looking at Module 6. And Module 6 addresses the management system requirements, which is the last major requirement for the ISO 15189 2022. So please, if you can hear me loud and clear, type on the comment section that you can hear me. Okay, yes, thank you. You can hear me. And welcome to today's section. So we're going to be running through the Module 6 of the ISO 15189 2022 course, and today's focus is on the management system requirements. Previously we have looked at other requirements. We have looked at general requirements. We have looked at structure and governance requirements. We have looked at resource requirements. We have looked at process requirements. So today we're going to be looking at the management system requirement. So the management system requirement is in clause 8. Clause 8. The management system requirement is addressed in clause 8. Now, under the management system requirement, we have 8.1 that talks about general requirements. 8.11 talks about general. 8.12 talks about fulfillment of the management system requirement. Then 8.13 talks about management system awareness. And 8.2 addresses the management system documentation. Then you have competency and quality, evidence of commitment. We have documentation that is addressed in 8.24. We have personnel access. The 8.3 talks about control of management system documentation. We have general, we have the control of the document. 8.4 talks about control of records. By now, we should know the difference between documents and records. Now, 8.4 addresses control of records, creation of record, amendment of record. And 8.43 talks about what? Retention of record. Then 8.5 also as we go. Okay, now 8 point talks about management system requirement, as you can see. Now the laboratory shall establish, document, implement, and maintain a management system to support the demonstration and the consistent fulfillment of the requirements of this document. Now, as a minimum, the management system requirement of the laboratory shall include the following. Talk about the responsibility, objective and policy, documented information, which you can see, which you are going to see in 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4. Action of address risks and opportunities of improvement, continual improvement, corrective actions, evaluation, internal audit, management review. So what this requirement is saying that you have to establish and document, implement, and maintain a management system to support and demonstrate the consistent fulfillment of the requirement of this document. Minimum should also have the responsibility of the management, should provide that. Objectives and policies, documented information as captured in 8.2, 8.3, 8.4. action to address risks and opportunities of improvement. Then continual improvement, documentation, corrective actions, evaluation and internal audit. The management review uh, meetings. Now, 8.12 talks about fulfillment of management system. The laboratory may meet 8.1 by establishing, implementing, and maintaining a quality management system in accordance to the requirement of the ISO 9001, which you are going to see in the table 1. Now, the quality management system shall support and demonstrate the consistent fulfillment of the requirement of the clauses from 4.4 to 7. So all the things we have captured from clause 4 to clause 7 and the requirements specified in 8.2 and 8.9, which we are going to be looking at. So this document should, the system, the management system now should support and demonstrate consistent fulfillment. In other words, we want to see where the management is showing the support and is demonstrating consistent fulfillment of the requirement that is in clause 4 to clause 7. That is what the 8.12 is saying. Now, management system awareness. When we talk about management system awareness, the laboratory shall ensure that persons doing work under the laboratory control are aware of the relevant objective and policies. So there should be a way to communicate the objective and the policies. One way you can communicate is to ensure that they have read the objective and the policies and they sign. Their contribution to the effectiveness of the management system, including the benefit of improved performance. So the management must be able to create that awareness to people working under them, to help them to see what are the benefits of having an improved performance. Next, the management system should create an awareness, inform those working under them, the consequences of not conforming with the management system requirements. What are the consequences of not conforming to this requirement? Now, 8.2 talks about management system documentation. Now, what are the management system documentation? The laboratory shall establish. I've told you earlier, anywhere you see shall, it means it's compulsory. You have to do it. Document and maintain objectives and policy for the fulfillment of purpose of this document, and shall ensure that the objectives and policy are acknowledged and implemented at all levels of the laboratory organization. So the policies, there must be policies for every aspect of the clauses. So you must have policies that address personnel, policies that address equipment, policies that address every of those documented procedures. There should be a policy that addresses it. After the policy, then you should now have objectives, departmental objectives, any objective that will help you to fulfill the goal of the continuous improvement program, and also fulfill the clauses of clause 4 to clause 8. So you should have what? Objectives. Next, 8.2 talks about no, the management system can, but are not required to be contained in a quality manual. So in this new ISO 151/2022, the management system document can, but are not required. So that means you may have a quality manual, you can put it in a quality manual, or you may decide not to put it in a quality manual. But even though you are not putting it in your quality manual, you should have what? A quality policy and quality objective. Very what? Essential. Are we communicating? Please, if you can hear me loud and clear, type on the comment section. I can hear you, so that I will know that we are communicating and we're on the same page. Okay, if you can hear me loud and clear, please type on the comment section. I can hear you. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So 8.22 talks about competence and quality. The objective and policy shall address the competence, the quality, and the consistent operation of the laboratory. 8.2.3 talks about evidence of commitment. So, how does the laboratory provide evidence of commitment to the development and implementation of the management system and continue improving its effectiveness? So, there must be an evidence. Evidence has to do with the records that of all the policies and all the documents, all the templates. 8.24 talks about documentation. All documentation including process, system, and record related to the fulfillment of the requirement of this document shall be included in and reference from or linked to the management system policies and objectives. Are we communicating? So every of your process, your system, you have to link it up to the management system policies and objectives. 8.25 talks about personnel access. All personnel involved in laboratory activity shall have access to the parts of the management system documentation that is related and applicable to their responsibility. So what does this mean? Let's say, for example, I'm a phlebotomist. So all the phlebotomists must have access to every document that relates to them. There are manuals, pre-analytical manuals, SOPs for sample management, and the rest. So for those personnel that are specific, have a specific responsibility, they must have access to the part of that management system documentation. So every of the documentation are regarded as the management system document, but that aspect that addresses their responsibility, they should be able to have it. Let's say, for example, that someone is in phlebotomy unit, a US sample, you should be able to have access to SOPs there of sample collection. The SOP should not be somewhere else, and he's doing the job somewhere else. So there must be what access to that part of that document that concerns a particular uh, office or a particular responsibility. Are we communicating? So the lab, let's say someone who is a scientist and working in an analytical space, should have all the documents, including manuals, that relates to what his responsibility. It shouldn't be in one person's office. It could be a hard copy, it could be a soft copy, but the major thing that does the personnel have access to that part of the management system documentation and related information that is applicable to his responsibility. Next, look at when we talk about documentation. Policies are the highest. Process, procedures, and record in terms of document hierarchy. So what are policies? Policies are statements that describe what is done and why. They define the goals and state the intent and the direction of the organization. Policies also talks about the strategic planning, personnel, and inventory, examples. Then process shows the interrelated steps in an activity that uses what resources. It transforms input to output. Example like a flow chart. Now, procedures show you detailed step by step. Remember, for process, you may have more than one procedure that contains in a process that shows you, oh, this leads to this, this leads to this, this leads to this. Like the pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical, they are the lab process. Now, procedure gives you detailed step-by-step instruction. Detailed, not only technical, but also activities such as respond to complaints, even for customers. You can have SOPs for complaint resolution. Are we communicating? The records talks about histories of what was done and cannot be changed. Example, examination results, reports, instrument printouts, and etc. So those are examples of records. Are we communicating? So this is a document hierarchy. So policies are higher than process and higher than procedures. Procedures are higher than records. And these are the way they are. 8.3 addresses control of management system document. How do we control the management system document? So the lab shall control the document, both internal and external, that relate to the fulfillment of this document. Are we communicating? So now the laboratory shall control the document, both the internal document and external document. Can somebody give me an example of an external document in the lab?
Instrument manual. And packaging size.
Okay, packaging size, yes, it's an example of an external document. The ISO 15189 standard is an example of what an external document. So both the internal document and external document has to be controlled. Now, documents can be policy statements, procedures as related to job aids, flow chart, instruction for use, specifications, and etc. and all those things. Now, when we talk about control of documents, the laboratory shall ensure that the documents are uniquely identified. So these are part of control. So every document must have a document number, most especially your internal documents. Documents must be approved for adequate use and must be authorized before that document is being put into use. Now, documents should be periodically reviewed and updated as when necessary. Now, the relevant version of that document should be available, while the obsolete version of that document must be retrieved from the system. And that's why sometimes when people have like things like worksheets, like a worksheet template and a particular version, if that worksheet template is reviewed, see a lot of people, some person will have print a lot of copies down. At the end of the day, even when it's being reviewed, you see the obsolete version of that document being in circulation. That should not be. Changes and the current revision status of document are identified. Documents are protected from all unauthorized changes and any deletion or removal. So you don't just change a document. That's the reason why every document has to be controlled. Because if you don't control those documents, people can just begin to produce different versions of their own document and put in use. The unintended use of obsolete documents is prevented, and suitable identification is applied to them if they are retained for any purpose. At least one paper or electronic copy of each obsolete control document is retained for a specified period of time in accordance to the applicable or specified requirements. So when you even have a document that is obsolete, you can still keep those documents controlled. It may not be in circulation, but it can be kept in a particular place to, okay, maybe for reference purpose for a particular period of time until you decide to discard that document. So in other words, every document that comes into the lab has to be controlled. Let's say, for example, if you have a manual, let's say there's a 151 manual that is standard that is sent to you. So you can put a stamp on it with the facility and sign. It's part of way of controlling such document. Or you can have it controlled on it. So you know that this document is actually a controlled document. So every document, including the internal and external document, has to be controlled. Then we talk about control of documents. If you read document and record in the basic quality management system I sent to you, you'll be able to see some other things, how to just do few of this implementation of this document, how to use name, how to use numbers, how to use tags, and the rest, depending on what you want to use in your organization. But the most important thing, the document must be uniquely identified. Just like the way everybody has a name, it must be uniquely identified. The version of it has to be there, and etc. Now, when we talk about control of records, records, I think by now, all of us, anybody that don't know the difference between document and records. If you don't know the difference between document and record, please comment on the comment section. Anybody? Oh, I don't know the difference between a document and a record. Okay, that means every one of us know the difference between a document and record. Thank you. So, okay. Oh, okay. So who can explain to us the difference between a document and a record? Or what's a document, what is record? With examples. You can unmute your mic. What is a document? What is a record? And what are the differences and examples? Who is helping us out? Okay, someone say document contains instruction, record on the other hand, refers to evidence of implementing the document. Okay. Record cannot be altered. Documents can be altered. Okay. Okay. So, uh, so a document. Hello, can you hear me? So yes, just as what is being said, a document can be an instruction, could be a template, could be a form of information, and you get to contain uh that is specific to a particular thing that addresses a particular subject matter. Now, a record is an evidence of implementation of that document or that instruction. And something can be a document and also change to a record. An SOP is a document. Then a standard requisition form is a document. But once you fill in the patient information, it becomes what? A record. A temperature chart on field 1 is a document. Once the temperature chart is being filled, it becomes what? A record. So records are evidence of an activity. Are we communicating? So that is evidence. Let's say, for example, now, for those that use manual results with sheet, if you are using a manual result sheet, that manual result sheet, if no information on it, no patient information on it, no activities have been recorded, it is a document. But once you have a result, the name is there, it becomes what? A record. Are we communicating? I think that's one of the simplest way to differentiate the amendment of records. Now, the laboratory shall ensure that the amendment of record can be traced to the previous version or to the original observation. Both the original and the amended data and files shall be kept, including the date and where relevant, the time and the alteration, an indication of the altered aspect, and the person making the alteration has to be documented. Let's say, for example, now you want to change a result. You don't just change a result and discard the previous one. So both the record of the previous one and the altered one has to be available. That is the reason why when you change a particular result, including the name of the person who changed it, time, why, has to be documented. Now, let me ask you a question. What is the difference between when, let's say, for example, we give out a report in the lab and you say lab results and you give a result and you change the document or you amend it? What is one characteristic that you know that would be one thing that differentiates between the previous record and the changed record? What is one thing in a test report? How are we going to know that this test report is the amended one or the changed one? Do you get my question? You must carry amended report or amended copy. Yes, you have to indicate it. It must be indicated as what? Amended report. It means that there's an original report or there's an initial report. So you can't just print a result and just change the result and it's still carrying normal result like the way it is. It shows you that is not amended copy. So it has to be amended. And that word amended report to amended copy has to be on the result. Thank you, Mr. John, for that. Okay. Now the laboratory shall implement the procedure needed for identification. Okay, we are talking about retention of records. So how long do we retain a record? So first, the lab has to implement the procedure needed for the identification of the record, storage, protection from unauthorized access and change, how to back up, how to archive them, retrieval, retention time, and the disposal of its record. Very, very important. Please look at it. Identification, storage, protection from unauthorized access and changes, how you back up, how you archive it, how you retrieve it, your retention time, how long that document should be, the disposal of its records must be there. Let's say, for example, now if you say your let's say your printout or your lab results for a particular lab, let's say for should be 5 years. That is what is stated in your retention policy. Then hello, can you hear me? Sorry. Can you hear me? So please, can you see my screen? Hello, can you see my screen? Okay, yes, okay. So when we're talking about retention of the record, so if you say 5 years for a particular lab result, now if that result, if let's say an auditor come on assessor and it's okay, can I get a result of 6 years ago or 5 years and 1 day? If you produce that record, is a non-conformity because your retention time it says 5 years. Now, so every aspect or every of these aspects, the storage protection, you have to have a policy that address it. How you should store your document, whether it's manual, whether it's electronically, and the rest. The retention time of all records shall be specified. All records shall be what? Specified. In addition to requirement, retention time can be chosen based on the identified risk of that kind of result. Just like what is also applicable to sample. We have sample retention time, how long the sample should be within the lab. And every but when you come to test, like let's say for example, like a tissue block, will you do a tissue block retention time of one week or even 1 month or even 1 year? You will not, because you know the sensitivity, the risk that's associated to that. Are we communicating? So reported examination results shall be retrievable for as long as necessary or as required. All records shall be accessible through the entire retention period. Legible, whichever medium the laboratory keeps the record, whether electronically or manually or both. We want to talk about legal liability concerns what? Regarding certain type of procedure. Example, histological examination, genetic examination, pediatric examination can require the retention of the certain record to be much longer time for other records. Let's say, for example, somebody comes to your lab and does a genetic typing, or let's say genetic assessment, or his own uh, uh, his own genetic copy, and maybe he wants to use that result to do a cross match for as many people that will come after his death, or for as many people that will claim we want to do like a paternity dispute. You can't say okay because your retention time is for other lab, for other tests is 1 year. After that, you feel.
Excuse
Can
me,
you hear
I'm
me?
not seeing the screen. I'm only seeing the page is so limited on your screen.
Please, can you see it? Can you see it?
Okay, yes.
Okay. So we'll talk about what we are addressing, talking about. So we talked about retention of records. Now, you said the laboratory shall implement procedures needed for identification, storage, protection, and unauthorization access and changing backup, retrieval, retention time, and disposal of its record. So I started explaining that the retention time for all records would be specified. Now, how long do you keep a particular record? I started using patient retention of samples as an example. Let's say, for example, now you can decide to keep maybe a chemistry sample for 2 weeks or 1 week and discard, but you can't decide to discard a tissue block in 1 year or even 2 years because they may call for it even in 5 years' time. So that's the same thing that is applicable to records. We said all records shall be accessible through the entire retention period whenever the laboratory keeps the record and are available for management review. Now, we said that legal liability concerning regarding certain types of procedure, like histology or genetic examination, can require the retention record for as much as long time than the other record. They say, for example, somebody came for to know his genetic profile, to know his DNA profile. Now, and after doing his DNA profile, maybe he had an intention of, okay, cross-matching his profile with some other people to know if it's truly their own stuff like that and the rest, maybe paternity and the rest. So you can't say after 1 year you did not see your detention policy is 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. Such a record, you have to keep it as long as possible, or else it may lead to legal issue. But the person came and do for genetic test, and maybe the person is not even available again, or the person has passed on, and you cannot get that record, and you are telling the lab is saying that, oh, we have discarded it, that retention policy say that 1 year or 2 years. You can't do that, or else you'll be sued. Are we communicating? So let's talk about 8.5, action to address risk and opportunities of improvement. So very, very important. One of the emphasis of this ISO is risk management. So you have to identify risks and opportunities of improvement. The laboratory should identify the risks and opportunities for improvement associated with the laboratory activities. So every aspect of risk identification and opportunity for improvement that cut across from the pre-analytical to the post-analytical, you must have actions to address it. Now, the laboratory should identify risk and opportunity for improvement associated with the laboratory activities. And remember, the laboratory activities start from the pre-analytical to the post-analytical. Now, you have to prevent or reduce undesired impact and potential failure in the lab activities. Achieve improvement by acting on what? On the opportunities. So, at every point in time, we want to see your areas that you are focusing when it comes to opportunities of improvement in your pre-analytical, your analytical, and your post-analytical. Ensure that the management system achieves its intended results. Then mitigate risk of patient care. So any risk that will affect patient care, you have to set in procedures. You have to identify those risks and manage those risks. And put in mitigation has to do with reducing the effects. The identification has to do with the potential. You are able to identify it, those risks, and put actions that will prevent those risks. Those are components of what? Risk management. Then mitigate the risk to what? Patient care. Then help achieve the purpose and the objectives of what? The lab. Do anybody have a question? Is it well understood? Or if you have a question, you can move to the mic and ask. Let me address one or two questions before we proceed. Do you have a question? Any question on what we have discussed so far? Any area that you don't really understand? You can mute your mic, ask, because you can type your question or whatever you want to do. Any question thus far on what we have discussed from 8.1 to 8.5? Okay. If there are none,
Hello, I don't know if it's only about me, but the lecture seems so disjointed that I'm not enjoying it. I'm not flowing with it.
what is disjointed about it? Is it that you're not understanding what is being said, or the class is not? What is your question? Which area are you not clear?
Usually it flows like 8.1, 8.2, and I understand it as it goes on. But for this one, I don't even know how it's going. I'm not understanding it. Not enjoying it.
Have you been here from the beginning of the class?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you need to pay attention. Then, if anyone you don't understand, please ask question. Look at it. Look at it. So 8+8 talked about management system requirements. Are you getting me? So we are saying in this document how to fulfill this management system requirement. Management entails what? Management covers all the aspects. So we are saying how do we use this system? How do we create a management system that can address clause 4, that will help to fulfill clause 4 to clause 7? So one of it we talk about management system awareness, creating a system that will help the employee or people working within the system to know what is obtainable, the consequences of not fulfilling the management system requirement, making them to understand their contribution and the benefit of having an improved performance. Now, 8.2 talks about what? Management of what? Management system documentation. So, and I explain the difference between document and records. So that is what the 8.2 is addressing. How are we going to retain our record? How do we control our record? Then I gave a chart on document hierarchy. I talk about policies, process, procedures, and record. We say policies are statements that describe what is done and how it should be done. They give an overall goal and it states the intent of a particular process and direction. And I said that every aspect of the quality system management system will have a policy that addresses. They will talk about processes. I gave examples like from the pre-analytical to the post-analytical. Pre-analytical processes, we have cross-border processes that are cut across from pre-analytical to post-analytical, some from analytical to post-analytical, some from pre-analytical to post, some within pre-analytical. Let's say, for example, now from sample collection to sample preparation, it's a process. So you could have documents. Are you getting me? These are interrelated steps in activity on the use of how to manage what a process. Then we'll talk about procedures, step-by-step instructions. We'll talk about that it's not only procedures are not only restricted to technical. Even procedures of handling complaints. You can have an SOP for handling complaints. We'll talk about records. Records are evidence of work done, evidence of compliance, evidence of implementation. That is a record. I would say this is the hierarchy. Is that well understood?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about control of the management system documentation, how to control document and how to control records. These are what we are discussing. The retention of the records, then action to address risks and opportunities of improvement. how to identify it. You have to identify it, put a action, put a corrective action to correct those risks and mitigate the risk of patient care. You have to mitigate it, to manage, to reduce the effect. Then we're talking about, let's talk about acting on risks and opportunities of improvement. So that's where we are now. Since I
Okay.
gave an overview, you understand the flow now?
Better now.
Yeah. So by the time you go over the recording again, you will understand. So after now, please ensure you take time to go over this recording, the class over and over again. That's where, especially if you don't really have a solid background on what they call it, on the basic quality management system, it may appear like this sometimes. So you need to listen to it over and over again, and you need to put lines to it. Now there's an activity that I'm going to give, which is going to serve as our processes. I will share us into 2 sessions, and that 2 sessions we're going to work on some activities within the ISO 15199 document. That will help us to read the document over and over again, and understand some aspect, and understand some document and program policies, procedure that need to be put in place to fulfill it. Because every of the clause, there are things you must put in place to fulfill that clause. So that's what we are going to be picking up. We'll divide the clause into two, and we'll divide the class into two, and you get to do that activity. So with that, everything that has been said, it will make a whole lot of sense to you. You should be able to read and go to. So 8.5.2 talks about acting on risks and opportunities of improvement. So identification is not just, identification is good, but if you don't act on it, then there is no success that will be guaranteed. So the laboratory shall prioritize and act on the identified risk. Listing shall prioritize and act. Actions taken to address risk shall be proportional to the potential impact on the laboratory result, as well as the patient work and personal safety. So when you have risk, you have to take action to address it. And that aspect of those will be proportional to the potential impact. What's the impact of this activity, of this potential risk on the examination results? Because the examination result is what is going to affect the patient. Because the result you give will help to manage the patient. So if there's any risk within your system that will affect the test results, those risks, those potential risks have to be addressed. Let's say, for example, now let me give you an example. You are having a refrigerator that you have an epileptic power supply. Today there is light, tomorrow there's no light, a whole lot of things. Maybe you are in a low resource setting area. What do you think that risk? If there's a risk, and there's where you put your reagent. So what is the risk? Do you think what do you think that potential risk have to affect what the examination result? Now, when your reagent is not put, especially your refrigerated items are not put within the right temperature, there will be distortion on the cold chain, deterioration of reagent. Your QC may start failing. A whole lot. And when these things are happening, what happens can affect the examination results. Then talk about, as well as the patient, talk about personnel safety. Oh, let's say, for example, now you're having some wire across the lab, and that wire is never trunk. No problem. You see the wire everywhere is scattered like on. Such things can cause electric shock. True or false? True. Can cause electric. So those things are harm to what? The personnel work safety. The laboratory shall record decision made and action taken on the risks and opportunities. Now, the laboratory shall integrate and implement action on identified risks and improve opportunities into the management system and evaluate what their effectiveness. Now you are putting actions to identify those risks identified and improvement opportunities. So you have to monitor it to see how if they are effective or not. Options to address risk can include identifying and avoiding the threats, eliminating a risk source, reducing the likelihood or consequences of a risk, or transferring a risk, taking a risk in order to pursue an opportunity for improvement, or accepting the risk by informed decision. Although this document requires the laboratory to identify and address risk, there's no requirement for any particular risk management method. Laboratory can use ISO 22367 and ISO 35001 for guidance. So all you need to do, I think I've explained risk management in this class. I think I've done that. Now, you identify the risk, you can create a template, or first and foremost, you can create a risk management team or a risk management officer in your organization, something like that, or a risk management team. Now you identify the risk or the potential risk. Then you can categorize the risk into the high risk, the low risk, medium risk, life-threatening risk using the risk matrix. Then you do a corrective actions. You can also do trainings for the risk management team. You can also put in processes and procedures and policies on risk management within your organization. Then you can also have templates for addressing risk, identify risk, which include what is identify risk, what is the impact, what is the risk metric, what is the corrective actions, which area this is going to affect, then what is the corrective action. Then you also have a space where you monitor the effectiveness of it. So you could create a template like that to manage your risk. Now, why overall you need to have a policy that address risk management within your organization. Then you have all these things being put in place. Opportunity for improvement can lead to expanding the scope of your laboratory activity. It can include applying new technology or creating other possibilities to fulfill the patient or the user's need. Remember, we said one of the things in basic quality management, we talk about customer focus. And in the beginning of the class, we discussed on the 7 principles of quality management system. And one of it is customer-centric, customer focus. That the lab must continue to identify the need of the customers, meet the need, and their future needs. So those opportunities for improvement can lead to expanding the scope of your laboratory activities. Oh, I've worked in a place whereby our services were 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I discovered that before 8 a.m., I've gotten like more than 50 people in my front desk waiting for me. So I decided to say, oh, though I know that the opening time is 8 a.m. So all I did was I did my opening to become 7 a.m. Then deploy somebody to come to work by 6:30, and the person closes earlier. So with that, I've been able to I've expanded my hours of service because I need to improve to be able to meet the patient's or the user's need. So people who are going to work in the morning, they are coming for their fasting test. Before 8 a.m., we have finished collecting over 50 samples. That is an area of improvement. I remember one of the places I managed, one of the facilities I managed some years ago. The client walked in there and said, come. He took me to the gate, held my hand and took me to the gate. I said, what can you see? I was trying to look at it. And when I looked, the letter, I was seeing what he was trying to communicate to me. I said, don't you see that this place is too small? The cars, the parking space there's no car parking space. With that, I have to push until we had a bigger lab somewhere. Why? Identifying opportunities for what? Improvement. It's not only technical aspect, including technical support aspect. logistics, whatever it is, whatever that will improve the overall outcome of the customer satisfaction should be worked on, and they should be documented. Am I communicating? And is it interesting? I'll type on the comment section if you understand what we are saying and if it's interesting to you, so that we can get everyone on board. Okay, what we are discussing is interesting to you, and are you getting the communication, the gist? Okay, yes. Someone else, yes. Okay. 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 So, hello. So 8.6 talks about improvement, continual improvement. This is part of the process improvement. So the lab shall continually improve the effectiveness of the management system, including pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical process, as stated in the objective and what in the policy. So just as I said earlier, you must have improvement plans, improvement goals for each of these processes. So in part of the 8.6, fulfilling it is to have a continual, what's your continual improvement plan for your pre-analytical? And you can get this point, these areas to improve by audit, doing an audit, audit or assessment. You can identify them by in your management review meetings. You can identify them to customers' feedback. You can identify them to system failures and etc. Now, laboratory shall identify and select opportunities for improvement and develop, document, and implement any necessary actions. Improvement activities shall be directed at areas of highest priority based on risk assessment and other opportunities that is identified. So if, let's say, for example, you need to improve in 25 areas. So you have to pick the areas that you have to work on based on the highest priority and the risk assessment that is attached to that. Let's say, for example, now, let me give you you want to improve, you want to get a bigger space, and you have a QC failure. Which of these two things should you put as priority when it comes to what your risk assessment, your opportunity of improvement? Which of them? Getting a bigger space or creating a bigger space to satisfy the customers for them to be more comfortable? Failures are addressed. You see that the QC failures are more important based on the risk, because there's a high risk of when your QCs are failing, because you may not be able to produce an accurate result. Opportunity for improvement can be identified through risk assessment, use of the policies, reviews of the operational procedures, overall objective, external evaluation reports, whether internal audit findings, complaints, corrective action, management review, suggestion from personnel. Those are the one I gave as example earlier. Suggestions or feedback from patients and users, analysis of data, EQA results. All these are places you can use to identify opportunities of what improvement. I take them again. Can identify them through your risk assessment, to your policies, to the review of your operational procedures, overall objective, external evaluations, like external audits, external reports, internal audit findings, complaints, corrective actions, management review, suggestions from personnel, suggestions or feedback from patients and users, analysis of data, EQA results, and etc. So this can form areas this can help you to identify areas of what improvement. The laboratory shall evaluate the effectiveness of the action taken. So when there is an action taken, you have to evaluate it to see if it is effective or not. Laboratory management shall ensure that the laboratory participates in a continual improvement activity that encompasses relevant areas and outcome of what patient care. Laboratory management shall communicate to personnel its improvement plan and the related what goal at every point in time, at every duration. Can somebody read 8.62? Unmute your mic, read 8.62. Please, can somebody unmute your mic and read 8.62 for us?
(8.6.2) Laboratory patients, users, and personnel feedback. Says the laboratory shall seek feedback from its patients, users, and personnel. The feedback shall be analyzed and used to improve the management system, laboratory activities, and services to users. Record of feedback shall be maintained, including the actions taken. Communication shall be provided to personnel on action taken arising from their feedbacks.
So, in other words,
yeah.
When
so what
people give
what
you
the,
feedback or when okay, go ahead.
okay,
Go ahead.
so
Go ahead.
I believe what this is saying is that there should be a way of getting feedback from both the staff and the patient. And if we look at the concept of quality, that the customer is at the heart of quality, it is important that we try to understand what is the perception of the customers at the end of every service that we deliver. So what this means is that at the end of the day, the customers or the patient should be able to tell you their perception, how they are satisfied with the service, and any areas that needs improvement. And then you can use these areas that needs improvement. You record them, you put an action plan on them, implement the action, and then provide feedback to the patient. On the other hand, looking at the internal process, it is the people who are working in the process that would better understand the process. So they understand the difficulties and they also understand what needs to be done to improve it. So I believe that it is ideal to also get feedback from the internal staff to say, what can we do to improve the status of the operation or the status of the whole process? And then when this is done, so this can be done in terms of survey, this can also be done in terms of feedback in meetings. And when we get this suggestion, it's important that we put an action plan in place to address this. And when you address this, there should also be a way of communicating to the staff that based on the suggestion from everybody, this is what has been implemented, and records as regarding to this must be maintained by the lab. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if you see, and now this document is self-explanatory, but very, very, very important that we understand. When we say laboratory shall seek feedback from its patient, users, and personnel. So when an auditor comes or I said, they want to know, how do you get feedback from your personnel? So like, what processes do you have in place? So you must have processes or policies in place for getting feedback. Just as he has said, staff suggestions in meeting, can have suggestion box, can have maybe survey. You could do surveys even within, even within those surveys has to be documented. Those staff suggestions have to be documented. Those staff suggestions, if you're using a staff suggestion box, so it is important. So if you have a feedback from patients and users and you don't have feedback from personnel, it's also a non-conformity because the standard say that the laboratory shall seek. Seek means to find. They are not waiting for them to only just give to you. You should also make a way for you to get those information. Then when those feedback is gotten, you have to analyze them and use to improve what the management system and the laboratory activities and the service towards the users. Record the feedback and also take actions. And you have to communicate to those who have given you to communication shall be provided to personnel on action taking arising from what their feedback. We're communicating. How many of us know about the Swiss cheese model for error prevention? Or how many of us can explain what is on this? If you understand it, look at it carefully. We call it Swiss cheese model of error prevention. How many of us have seen this before? How many of us understand it? How many of us can explain on what you are seeing? Look at it now. Models of error prevention. Okay, let me give for example now. There's an outbreak, let's say during the time of Ebola or COVID, or you read that a Ebola sample came into the lab and it was not like, okay, you didn't actually know it was like that, or there's an outbreak, or you're working in a hospital, there's a infection that is the outbreak within the hospital. It's like, okay, using this Swiss cheese model of error prevention, how will you explain it? Basically, what it's saying that they are to prevent an error. There's some things that is called personal responsibility. Now, there are some things that is called shared responsibility. There are some things that has to do with management taking what responsibility, some government taking personal responsibilities. And let's say, for example, now, some of the responsibility can be physical distance
So good.
or you
You see,
staying home if you are sick. Some of those personal responsibilities can be what hand hygiene,
I take the office a lot. I
off
must stop it.
etiquette. So nobody will come and tell you to wash your hand. You should be able to
So
know that
like
those
this,
are personal responsibility for
and
the example that I gave. Now,
so
some shared responsibility.
I had to put it down.
Okay,
You know what that is.
please kindly mute your mic, please. So we have what we call personal responsibility. Those personal responsibility should be done personally. Then we have what we call shared responsibility. Please, just a minute, please. Okay. Can okay, back. So this Swiss cheese model of error prevention. So it's a model of error prevention, or like a how would I say that, metamorphical representation of how multiple layers of protection can prevent errors or accidents. You see, these multiple areas can what prevent accident what or errors. Now, let me explain. Now imagine, these things you are seeing, they are what called stock of slides of Swiss chess, each with holes of varying size. The hole represents the vulnerability or the weakness of each of the layers of protection. Now, there are different controls you can put into it to prevent an error. We have like administrative controls, which has to do with policies, procedures, training, and programs. We have technical controls, like such as maybe you can put like alarm or something like interlock for like floors and all the rest things. We have physical barriers, like let's say for example something is happening, you quarantine or isolate the person, or you put fence and put walls to prevent one thing from moving from particular place to the other. We have human factors such as our behaviors, our performance, our attention, our decision making can affect a lot of things. So these are different actions that we have to put together to ensure that what the errors can be prevented. Now, when an error or an accident occur, it's likely like a hole in one of these layers you are seeing. Now, if there is only one layer, the error can pass through and cause harm. You can see that first three. 1, 2, 3. Now, however, if there are multiple layers, the error is more likely to be caught and prevented somewhere. Are we communicating? Now, if you look at the first 3 arrows, 1, 2, 3, there's a hole. At the fourth one, that error is stopped, or that potential error is stopped. Now, there's still another 1, 2. And here you see that star, that one has stopped there. So there is a defense in in-depth, multiple layers of protection to provide a more robust defense against what? An error. Does this make sense to us? Do we understand this model? Well, it's not part of it, just like I'm just using, like they say, tool. It's one of the common tools we use in error prevention. So it's not part of the standard, but it's just something I just like to introduce to us. I will talk about personal responsibility, shared responsibility. So by the time you put in the personal responsibility, shared responsibility, you see that the errors will be prevented. Let's say, for example, now we are talking about cross infection. Now, by the time you put in what hygiene, some physical thing that you can do within yourself, and that can do, we can all do together, and what the organization can all do. By the time we put in all these actions, we should be able to curb what that error from happening. Are we communicating? Yes. If you don't understand, you can read more about it, or you can ask for explanation. I will explain better. So 8.7 talks about non-conformity and corrective action. What is a non-conformity? I know I'm not supposed to be asking that in this class. What is a non-conformity? Please, kindly mute your mic, please. What is non-conformity? Hello, what is non-conformity? Okay. So non-conformity and corrective. What is non-conformity?
Okay, sir. So non-conformities can be likened to deviations from standard practice or established standards within the laboratory. So you have protocols, SOPs, and what you're doing is not in line with that. I think that can be regarded as non-conformity. Over.
Come again.
It can be said to be deviations from standards, established standards. You know, when it comes to
any action that does not, yes, any action does not agree with the set protocols, with the set practice, with the set standard, and non-conformity. So actions when non-conformity occur. When the non-conformity occurs, the laboratory shall do what? Respond to the non-conformity and as applicable. So determine the cause, the root cause of the non-conformity. Then because a proper root cause analysis is key to an effective corrective action. If you don't do a proper root cause analysis, then your corrective actions will not be effective. Now, in basic quality management system, you are taught how to do a root cause analysis in different models. And one of the most common ones is using the 5 why analysis. How many of us understand it? How many of us don't understand the 5 why analysis for root cause analysis? Asking 5 questions, 5 whys to get to the root of a particular problem. So you do a proper root cause analysis, you put a corrective action, then you check the corrective action for effectiveness. Let's say, for example, now, let's say a proper root cause analysis. Let's say a patient comes in, implement the action that is needed, review to evaluate the effectiveness of any corrective action, update the risks, opportunities, and make changes to the management system we apply. Let's say, for example, a client or a patient comes in and a test that a request was not done or was not done. So you need to find out what was the real root cause to be able to put a corrective action that will be effective. Now, if you ask the first why was the patient result not ready? Oh, the scientist or the result was not done. The test was not done. That is the first answer to the why. True or false? It can be any answer, but I'm just using this as an example. So if you take your corrective action based on this first reason, you may just be solving the problem superficially. So the next thing, why was the test not done? Maybe the next answer to the why will be, oh, reagent was not available. We were stuck out. The next, why were we stuck out? Oh, the procurement did not we didn't have supplies of consumables or reagents. The next why was there no supply of reagents? Oh, the vendor refused, or we are owing the vendor refused to what? Supply. Why did the vendor refuse to supply? Oh, we have not paid him in the last 2 or 3 months. Oh, why do you not pay him in the last 2 or 3 months? Oh, there's no cash flow enough to pay the vendor. You see that the real problem why the test was not done is not what the scientist. So it's not because the test was not wanting to be done. It was a lot of what cash flow issues. So if you address the scientist who did not do the test, have you actually addressed the problem? See that what the corrective action you put will not be effective. So that's what we call the 5 why analysis. There is what we call fishbone analysis, the other kind of analysis you can do for doing a root cause analysis. So these are examples of it. So by the time you now put in a corrective action, you see that there is a high tendency that corrective action is going to be effective. And if the corrective action is not effective, you have to review it and make the proper corrective action. So corrective action effectiveness. Corrective action shall be appropriate to the effect of the non-conformity they encounter and shall mitigate the identified causes. You have to have a record of the non-conformity and the corrective action. This you can achieve by having a non-conformity / corrective action template. Non-conformity / what? The corrective action template. I will share one with you, an example of one with you in your on the WhatsApp group, but it can just capture the non-conformity, closely the non-conformity is being identified, then the statement of the non-conformity itself that is identified. Then the next is doing a root. There will be a space for a root cause analysis. There will be a space for a corrective action. There will be a space to monitor if the corrective action effective. Are we communicating? So let's look at 8.8. 8.8 talks about evaluation. When we're talking about evaluation, the body shall conduct and plan at interval to demonstrate the evaluation at interval to demonstrate the management support and the pre-examination, examination, and post-examination process to meet the need and the requirement of patient and laboratory user, and to ensure conformity to the requirement of these documents. So it's expected that what? It's expected that there is what? Then next talks about 8.2. 8.8.2 talks about quality indicator. The process of monitoring quality indicator shall be planned, which includes establishing the objective, methodology, interpretation, limit, action plan, and duration for monitoring. The indicator shall periodically be reviewed to ensure continued appropriateness. Now, quality indicators are used. Hello. Quality indicators are set to help to improve or to meet a particular goal or particular objective. Let's say, for example, you can use a turnaround time as a quality indicator. We say, okay, in this year, are you getting me? Our turnaround time for the chemistry test or the microbiology test was, let's say, let's say microscopy was 3 hours. You can say, okay, this year you want to do 2 hours, or the next 6 months you want to do. You have to measure it. Now, if at the end of the day you do less than 2 hours, you have met your indicator. Now, let's say, for example, now you say, okay, your proficiency test, your AQA result, you want to have 95% acceptance. So, at the end of a particular period of measurement, if you have, let's say last year you have 75%, or the last quarter you have 75%. So at the end of this year, if you have 85%, you have improved, but you have not met your indicator. Because your indicator state that what it should be 95%. Are we communicating? So the indicator shall be periodically reviewed to ensure what continued appropriateness. Then internal audit. So it's expected that there is an internal audit plan at least minimum once in a year. So you must plan it, establish it, and implement it. And one of the non-conformity that we normally raise or seen in places that are growing their lab is internal audit. Why? Because most people who are there don't even understand what the audit is all about. And so they cannot even do internal. And for you to be an internal audit, you have to be deemed competent to be an internal audit. So you can't just carry an audit when you are not be deemed competent to carry an internal audit. So that's why most places you see that non-conformity. So the body shall conduct internal audit as planned interval to provide information on whether their management system is in accordance to what they are doing, conform of the laboratory own requirement for its management system, including laboratory activities. So you have to internally audit your organization, and it has to be internal audit is different from an external audit. So the requirement states that you have to have an internal audit. That will be planned. There should be a schedule, and the non-conformity that is based on the internal audit has to be addressed and cleared within a given period of time. So these are all objectives of what corrective actions that should be done that arises from what in an internal audit. So for this to achieve, for you to achieve this, you must have a policy that addresses your internal audit. Who should do the internal audit, when it should be done, what the frequency of it to be done, template for reporting of internal audit, corrective actions, template for those audits or those non-conformity that is being raised and cleared. And there will also be competency, or let's say, for example, the people who are carrying an internal audit has to be trained. Because if you don't understand the quality management system, there's no way you can be able to do what an internal audit. And one of the difference between internal audit and the external audit is that you are available to be able to help the team or help the people to get to those corrective actions and implement them. And it is important that you don't audit your area of practice. Let's say, for example, if I'm in a hematology bench, I should not audit that with that my work. You can't audit your work. And if, for example, now let's say Pegasus Laboratory, now we have 5 branches. I hope we all know the difference between an internal audit and external audit. So if I move from Lagos office to go and audit an office in Abuja, as far as we are still within the same organization, it's an internal audit, not an external audit. So please, let's take note for some of these little things. Management review. So the lab shall have review of its management system and plan interval. So it must be adequate, it must be effective. Now, in the previous ISO, you see the agendas, but the agenda is not actually captured there. But the input of the management review shall be recorded and shall include the evaluation of at least the following. Status of your action for previous management review meeting must be there. Your internal and external changes to the management system has to be captured. Change in volume of work, type of laboratory activity, the adequacy, the resources, all those things has to be reviewed. Fulfillment of the objective and suitability of the policies and procedures, outcome of recent evaluation, process monitoring using the quality indicators, internal audit, analysis of non-conformities, corrective action, assessment by external bodies, regulatory bodies, external audit. You have to review them. Patient and user and personnel feedback and complaints, quality assurance of the result validity, effectiveness of any implemented improvement and actions taken to address risks and opportunities for improvement, the performance of Okay. So we're talking about other relevant factors such as monitoring activities. And so one way to fulfill this is to ensure that you have a management review template and your management review policy, the frequency of your management review meeting, who is involved, what are the inputs that should be brought to such meetings, and etc. Hello, can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me? So I hope you can hear me now. Yes. Okay. So as I was saying, yeah, we can hear you now. Okay. So we're talking about output. So I said one way to achieve this is to ensure that you have a management review policy that tells you the frequency, uh, what are the input that are expected from different departments and sub managers. Then you have is a management review document, it's like a template where where the meetings are captured. So to help you not to be saying things that are not relevant. So with that, you just go to the headings and deal with those headings in accordance to what is in this 8.2 and other things that you think that should be discussed in that meeting. So the 8.93 talks about review output. So the effectiveness of this management meeting, you have to communicate it, the time frame, who is responsible, the provision of the resources that is needed, any change, you need to communicate it to the department or the personnel.
This going on, is it only with me or is it general? Ah,
review now for people that
Off of my power bank.
okay.
It's charging.
Yeah, so I just explained the app. Hello, please, Ron. I just explained the output. So those outputs, the review output was saying that from the management review, the records of those actions should be related to the persons who are responsible to take the actions and improvement, the resources that is also needed. And also that for those that work like in a government institution, where maybe your top management may not be present in such management review meeting, you need to have like a document or a means of communicating the actions and writing for that management review to both the laboratory personnel and also to your top management. And there should be a document showing those actions. So that's what we are saying, and that is the end of the 8th clause. Well, clause 8. Somebody say the content of the meeting. I didn't get that. Is it a question or what? Okay. Is there any question? Is there any question? Any question? Okay. And the answer to another question. You got it. Any question?